Good morning, LCC kids. Happy Sunday. Did you guys have a really fun time this past week at VBS? I know my family did. We loved starting each day with our Under the Sea videos and making crafts together, and loved getting to see some of the pictures from your families as well. We're going to jump in with our game for this morning. It's called Home Hunt. And here's how this is going to work. There's going to be a wheel with all kinds of items that might be in your house that's on it. And we're going to spin the wheel. And whatever it lands on, you're going to have 15 seconds to go and find it and bring it back to whatever screen you're watching this video on. But here's what you got to do. Here's the catch. You have to hunt quietly as you can. You can't shout, you can't make a lot of noise, but you have to grab it in 15 seconds. You think you're up for the challenge? All right, let's go ahead and we're going to spin our wheel. Wonder what it's going to land on. What am I going to get? And it's a stuffed animal. All right, 15 seconds on the clock and go. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bam! Time is up. You kids grab maybe your favorite stuffed animal or maybe just the one that was closest at hand. If you did and you did it in 15 seconds, congratulations, major props to you. Now, in our lesson for today, we're going to find out somebody was being hunted down and his family, they had to go on the run, but they had to do it really quietly. In fact, the name of our lesson for today is God's Quiet Salvation. So you kids, you have to be extra quiet during the lesson today. You with me? Sitting still, listening. All right, great. We are starting the story of Moses today, and this is from story number 27 in our Gospel Story Bible. And the first thing that we're going to see here is that God rescues a baby. God rescues a baby. You might remember where we left off with Joseph being reunited, forgiving his brothers, and then all of his family, they come into Egypt to escape the famine that they were experiencing back in the promised land, the land of Canaan. And they finish out their years and their lifetime in the nation of Israel. And they grow and they grow and they multiply and they multiply. And now Jacob's family started with 12 sons, and he has many generations of this big family. They're living in the land of Goshen in Egypt. And the Pharaoh who knew Joseph, he dies and he is gone. And there's a new Pharaoh who rises up to power. And this guy doesn't know about Joseph. Joseph has been forgotten already. He's been forgotten in the land of Egypt. All he had done to help out this nation. And what this Pharaoh sees is he sees all of these Hebrews, all of these Israelites, and he starts to get worried about them. What if they were to rise up and be some kind of army against us? And so he is afraid. And so what he decides to do is to make them into slaves. You know, often it's when people are really afraid and they're worried about themselves that they become mean to others. You know, they become bullies. Behind people's bullying and mistreatment of others is often their own worries and their own fears. And that's happening even in this Pharaoh. And so what he decides he's going to do is all of the Hebrew boys that are born, they're going to have to be thrown into the Nile River and killed, because he doesn't want this group of people to get any bigger. But you might remember this, the people getting bigger and bigger and bigger was fulfilling God's promise. God had said that to Abraham, you're going to have as many children and grandchildren as there are stars in the sky and sand on the seashore. And so even while God's people are facing trouble, God's promise is being fulfilled. But here, it looks like the promise is about to come to an end. Right? This has happened several times in this story. Remember, Abraham is going to offer up Isaac. It looks like God's promise is about to be killed, and yet God provides, and God is going to rescue once again, but he's going to do it in the most quiet of ways. And there's this one family, and they're about to have a baby boy, and they're concerned because they don't want this baby boy to be killed like Pharaoh had ordered. And it's really interesting because there were these women, they were called midwives back then. They were kind of like nurses that helped moms give birth when it was time for them to labor and deliver a baby. And these two Hebrew midwives, their names were Shiphrah and Puah. That was their names. They get named in this story, and they step up and they say, we're not going to do what Pharaoh says. We're going to make sure that these lives of these babies are preserved. And you know what? We don't even get Pharaoh's name in this story. We don't even know what his name was if you're just reading the book of Exodus where this is found. But these two women are quietly on the side rescuing little babies, and God writes down their names for us. Thousands of years later, we still know the names of these rescuers that God had raised up. But God is going to provide a way to rescue this one baby who is about to be born. And here's what the family does. They keep it really quiet when this baby is born. I saw a movie recently about a family that they have to stay really quiet because there are these monsters that are going to come, and they have a baby. And you know what babies do? Babies cry when they're born. And so they make this silent little area for it to hang out in, where they have to do this as well. They keep it quiet. But when they can't keep it quiet any longer, they take this baby and they put him in this little basket. And they call this basket an ark. And they put it down in the Nile River. And his sister named Miriam watches over him. And you probably know this story. You know that I'm talking about Moses here. And the same way that God told Noah to build an ark, and for that ark to stay in the water, for their family to be rescued, and God's promise to be fulfilled, Moses is put in this little ark, and he floats down the water. And who finds him but the daughter of the very man that was trying to kill the Hebrew boys? The daughter of Pharaoh pulls out this ark from the water and finds this baby boy and names him Moses. Moses means he was delivered, he was rescued out of the water. And God is the one who did the rescuing, even though everything is quiet right now. And we're going to find out about God not just rescuing a baby, but how God is going to rescue through a baby. But before we do that, we're going to play a quick game. It's called 12 in 12, and it's going to test your powers of memory. And here's how it's going to work. You're going to have 12 seconds to stare at the screen and look at all the little pictures there and see how many of those you can memorize. And then you're going to be asked which ones you can remember. And then you'll see which ones you might have gotten right. So let's go ahead and put our first one up on the screen. All right, you ready? Here we go. Stare carefully at all those strange objects. You got 12 seconds to remember what they are. And they're gone. Time's up. All right. How many of these can you remember? Go ahead and just talk out loud. Tell your siblings, tell your parents which ones you remember seeing on the screen. Think about however many you can remember. You got 8 more seconds to name them all. Rack your brain, see what you can come up with. All right, time is up. Let's see how you did. And there you have it. Which one of those maybe did you forget? It's kind of hard when you just have 12 seconds to memorize all of that. All right, let's go ahead and do round 2. Get ready. And go. You got 12 seconds. Stare at it all. Is it making you hungry? Hope you've already had breakfast. Time is up already. All right, how many of those were you able to remember? Go ahead and list them off one by one. Can you pull up the picture in your mind? You got 5 more seconds. All right, time is up. Let's go ahead and take a look. How many of these did you get correct? Do you have memory power? I bet some of you did better on this one than the last one just because of all the food and tasty treats. Which one of those food items is your favorite? Go ahead and shout out at home and let us know. All right, can you compare? Think about which ones you got right. Which ones did you forget? Did y'all remember the salad? Maybe the sushi? I don't know, probably the ice cream and the cupcake and the donut were definitely remembered. And that has been 12 in 12. How are your powers of memory? Well, here in this story about the people of God, as they are facing year after year of slavery and hardship and being bossed around and forced to work, and they are being beaten down, and even their lives are being threatened, they might think God has forgotten us. I mean, Joseph was forgotten by Egypt. All the things that he had done, they can't remember him. It looks like maybe God has forgotten as well. But I love what it says here in Exodus chapter 2, verse 24. It says, and God heard their groaning. Right? God notices every tear, every moment that we're hurting, every time we are upset. God pays attention. God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant, his promise with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. God saw the people of Israel, and God knew. God took notice, God saw, and God remembered the promise he had made that he would protect this people, that he would redeem this people, that they would be his people, that they would be a great nation. And you know what God does about that? God doesn't just rescue a baby in this story. God rescues through a baby in this story, because God is raising up Moses, who will be sent back to Egypt, back to Pharaoh. He will tell him, God says, let my people go, and they will be set free from slavery. And we'll take some more time next week thinking through how that happened and what went down. But you know this? This isn't the only time that God has rescued through a baby, is it? Right? God was true to his promise to the end, and God sent a baby. He sent baby Jesus. He wasn't, in a little basket boat floating down the Nile, but he was put in a little manger, and he was the promised one who would come and save his people from slavery. Not this kind of slavery, but our slavery to sin. And just like Moses, the ruler of his day threatened to kill all the little boys in Israel, but his family, they escaped. And you know where they went to? They went to Egypt for a time. And then they came back out of Egypt, and Jesus grew, and he lived, and he died, and he rose again to rescue you and me. I mean, isn't this amazing how this story points to what God would do in Jesus? But right now, it's just quiet, and it seems like nobody's noticing, right? Pharaoh's daughter doesn't know where Moses has come from. She certainly doesn't know what God is up to. It looks like even God has forgotten, but he hasn't. He is at work bringing about his quiet salvation in his time. And that's why he's worthy of our trust today. In our own moments where we feel like this is hard, this has gone for too long, I wish things were different, God is with us. God notices. God remembers us. And he is always at work. And the proof is in Jesus. All right, thanks, kids. Great time hanging with y'all today. And we will see you next Sunday.